Japan has changed. After 2 years being locked behind the bamboo curtain, you can now visit the land of the rising sun at your leisure as of October 11th. However, before you jump on your flight, there are a few new policies and changes to the country that you need to know. So let's take a look. Most important to all foreign travelers planning to make use of the legendary Shinkansen bullet trains, make sure to check the size of your luggage. Prior to the lockdown, it was fine and common to bring multiple large bags on the train by placing them behind the chairs at the end of the row or between the cars. This is no longer the case. The new rule states that bags under 22 inches or 160 centimeters by sum of height, length, and width are fine and do not require any reservation. Bags between 23 and 28 inches or 160 to 250 centimeters are allowed. However, you are required to make a reservation before boarding. You may bring them without reservation provided you do pay a fee of 1,000 yen, which is around $7. But critically, you may no longer bring any bag that is over 29 inches or with a sum greater of 251 centimeters for any reason. Fortunately, there are baggage services in Japan, such as Sagawa or Yamato Transport. These are often at airports and major train stations, but more conveniently can be arranged from your hotel if you cannot avoid bringing bags of this size.
Thank you for using the Shinkansen.
For opening and closings, sadly at this time, Tokyo's robot restaurant has closed its doors as a precautionary measure. Although, to be honest, I've always considered this one a bit of a tourist trap, a popular one to be fair. Fortunately for tourists, but unfortunately for those that actually live in Tokyo, the real-life Mario Kart is back on the table. For travelers carrying an international or Japanese driver's license, you can once again dress up in a onesie of your favorite characters and drive around the streets of Tokyo, living out your Mario Kart fantasies. This has always been a popular pick for tourists, but the company itself has always been a controversial one, getting hit by Nintendo by a lawsuit for copyright infringement, and a series of accidents caused by either blue shells or just poor driving ability. These karts drive on real Tokyo roads, so join them at your own risk. Just don't throw any bananas at Japanese commuters and you'll probably be fine.
Mamma mia! Oh no!
For a safer and more official experience, Universal Studios Japan has opened its Super Nintendo Land, which features an augmented reality Mario Kart experience as well as some other rides. USJ is actually my second favorite theme park in Japan, behind Fuji-Q Highland. There is also a newly opened Ghibli Park in Aichi Prefecture, which is proving to be incredibly popular, so popular in fact that tickets are only available in the form of a lottery, at least until sometime next year. The iconic Nakagin Capsule Tower has been demolished, and Harajuku's iconic wooden station has been replaced with a more modern one. Team Lab Borderless has closed its doors. Team Lab Planets is still available, but I never found this one quite as good as the former. For photographers, as of June, all drones over 100 grams are required to be registered. In addition, they must be equipped with a remote ID function or equipment. As many older models do not have this, sadly, it might be better to just leave it at home. Plastic bags are no longer free in Japan as well, and now cost either 2 to 5 yen. Because of this, shopkeepers will often ask you if you'd like one, or if you have brought your own, which may confuse travelers who do not speak Japanese. But no worries, using the phrase "fukuro onegaishimasu" while placing your items on the counter will serve you quite well. When all else fails, just keep nodding and saying yes, which will get you through roughly 99% of your interactions while in Japan. Oh, and I should briefly mention how useful actually having a bag with you is in Japan. If you've never been here, you've probably heard about how clean Japan is, but almost paradoxically, you will notice almost immediately that it's incredibly hard to actually find a trash can. People in Japan after buying something will often stand outside a store to eat or drink whatever they bought to make use of the convenience store trash cans, as the only other place you might actually see one is at a train station. In Tokyo, however, this is not always the case due to the sarin gas attacks of 1995, where they were used to hide the poisons. After this, most trash cans were removed from the city, but you'll definitely notice how hard they are to find across the country in general. Grabbing a bag from the store or carrying your own will be very useful for trash that you'll accumulate throughout the day. Japanese streets are indeed some of the cleanest in the world, and let's keep it that way. I often hear people abroad talking about how much they want to visit Japan, but are afraid to because of the language barrier. However, this really isn't something to be concerned about at all. In the past 5 years, there's been a real overhaul of Japan's signs, self-service machines, and menus, which will almost always have an English option. It's true that most Japanese do not speak English, but most do know a few simple words, and they will often present you an English option almost immediately to smooth over any orders or transactions, so that most communication can be made non-verbally. I'd go as far to say that you'll actually find it much easier to travel in Japan without the language than you would in many European countries.
You work as a milkman?
Yes, I sell and deliver milk, yes.
The icing car man has been claiming that you fooled him into order 1,000 liters of your milk.
Yeah, maybe. And so fucking what? I need money, I have 3 cows to feed. Og du skal den kommer, du skal anklage mig for tilbage, når du skal se glasses.
What did you just say there?
Now you just ordered 1,000 liter milk.
Tourism is big business in Japan, so much so that Kyoto's almost facing financial ruin due to the lack of tourists in the past 2 years of lockdowns. Ironically enough, prior to the lack of tourists, many residents would actually complain that there were too many visitors, putting in restrictions like no photography in streets such as Gion. But with the lack of people, many of these ordinances are being considered to be removed to encourage and welcome back tourists to the city that could be considered the soul of Japan. I'll admit, it has been nice to walk around the empty streets, but with the Japanese economy in the state that it is in, virtually the entire country is hoping for as many visitors as possible to revive the businesses that have fallen on hard times. But even before this, Japanese service was some of the best in the world, so don't worry, they'll go out of their way to help you if communication does break down. Japan is still primarily a cash society, but over the lockdown there has actually been a push for many places to go cashless. Credit cards and phone pay is now available at more places than ever. However, I would still recommend having at least 30 to 50,000 yen, or around $300 on hand while traveling. The Japan Rail Company also has a new Welcome Suica card for travelers, which can be preloaded with cash and used for vending machines, train lines, and payments at convenience stores and shops. It's really convenient for tap to pay if that's something that you're into. However, cash loaded onto the card cannot be refunded, so just make sure to use the whole balance before leaving Japan. In recent years, there has been a big move to ban smoking in Japan, which is now banned indoors. Outdoor smoking is only banned in some parts of Japan, such as Shinjuku, Shibuya, and parts of Tokyo. However, you will still see people often do this on the streets, and there are also many designated smoking areas on streets and at stations. For entering the country itself, the only requirement is a negative COVID test taken within 72 hours prior to departure. For specifics on which tests are accepted and those that are not, please check the Japanese Ministry Health website linked in the description. It might surprise you to see that around 95% of Japanese people will still wear a mask at all times. The ministry actually has no outdoor requirement for this, but they still ask that you wear one indoors and on public transportation. However, it was always very common to see this even before restrictions were put in place, and it's been a part of Japanese culture for decades. Most stores will have free hand sanitizer at each of their entrances, as well as automatic body temperature sensors, and most restaurants will use plastic dividers between tables. One further note that as of time of recording, the Japanese yen is at one of its weakest points in years, and you might find this to be an excellent time to travel to get the most bang for your buck, as 1 USD is currently worth 150 Japanese yen. Since the borders have opened, there has been a surge in tourists, but many of the locations are still without the crowds that you would have seen prior to 2019. And I can only imagine that next year's spring sakura season is going to be one of the busiest in history. Let me know if you think I missed any tips in the comments, and if you are planning a trip, then you need to see my 2-week Japan travel itinerary for all your holiday needs. Subscribe for more videos about Japan, and I'll see you in the next one.